Thank you very much for being here today to celebrate International Women's Day. I'd also like to thank Sarbjit Sondha for spearheading this initiative today and bringing a female Kirtani to serenade us as well. My name is Sarbjit Sondha. Today is a day to celebrate women and all of their contributions to society, while also discussing ways to reduce gender inequality. Let's first define gender inequality. It is the acknowledgement that men and women are different and receive unequal treatment in the world as a result. There are definitely scientific differences in biology and psychology, but the problematic differences are socially constructed. Culture, language, religion, politics, geography, and economics influence the ways in which we think about and treat women and men, affecting different domains. Everything in our lives: education, life expectancy, personality, interests, family life, careers, and social and political affiliations. Gender equality does not exist in and of itself, but also intersects with race, religious, class, and caste inequality. This term means different things in specific contexts, and today I'm going to discuss Sikhism and gender equality. To begin, I'd like to share some anecdotes about Sikh feminists. Next, I will explore how Sikhism promotes gender equality, and finally I will conclude with some of the challenges and opportunities facing us as we strive for a more just society. Slide, please. Could you slide, please? Thank you. I am a feminist. I am a Sikh. I am a daughter, a wife, a mother, a sister, a friend, a worker, community volunteer, and have many other facets to my identity. Even though we often use categories such as Indian women, Canadian women, South Asian women, Sikh women, it's always important to recognize the specific experiences, values, and ideas that women in these categories possess. No two women are alike, and it is important to value the diversity of experiences which shape women in different contexts. My parents immigrated to Canada in the mid-1970s, and I was born and raised in Toronto. My sister and I grew up going to the Gurbani every Sunday, learning Punjabi and Kirtan, and very much grounded in our Indian and Sikh heritage. As a young child, my mom was my inspiration and source of encouragement. She always taught us that we were more valuable to her than sons, and equally capable of accomplishing anything that we wanted. Before being able to complete grade 12, she was sent to Canada with a cousin brother to marry a man she'd never met or spoken with. After landing at the airport, she married him 3 days later. Lucky for her, my dad is an amazing man, so things worked out, but they don't for every woman. Shortly after coming to Canada, she began working at a factory where they asked her to clean the toilet. That was the shock of her life, as in India, she never had to complete such tasks. She quit that job and decided to seek other opportunities. She learned English, typing, and was the first among her friends to learn to drive. Later, she worked as a sewing factory, as a cashier at Rockville Farms, and as a mortgage agent at TD Canada Trust. She later on became a very successful real estate agent as she sought to find more balance between life and work. She was a great negotiator and put her heart and soul into helping clients with not only finding homes, but providing other services such as counseling, grocery shopping, cooking, and simply being a good Sikh. She was a Sherni, a lioness, fearless, proud, and strong. And she came from a long line of Shernis, including her mother and grandmother. They had crossed from Pakistan to India during partition in the mid-1940s and faced enormous adversity. When people were fleeing with the clothes on their backs, her grandmother carried a sewing machine with her to ensure a source of livelihood in their new home. Despite the treacherous and dangerous journey, she had the foresight to think about how she could earn money to meet her family's needs. My grandmother tried to ensure that each of her daughters received an education by sending them to her sister in the city. My feminist grandmother wanted her daughters to be educated and financially independent. My mom always told us that Naniji wanted us to be able to give money and never have to put out our hand to ask for it. After getting married, I also met my husband's grandmother, who used to manage a store from the age of 7, through which she earned money to support her entire family. She was the eldest of 7 sisters, but took on this leadership role with confidence and vigor, despite having no formal education and being unable to read or write. A common thread between all of them was an enormous faith in Vaheguru and a sense of pride in our Sikh history. Next slide, please. Looking back at our Sikh history, there are numerous examples of famous women. Bibi Nanki, who first realized her brother's enlightenment. Mai Bapu, the famous warrior who led 40 Sikh men into battle. Mata Sundan and Mata Gujri, who sacrificed their sons for religious freedom. They were sisters, wives, mothers, grandmothers, sevadars, and warriors. In addition, every Sikh mother throughout history has been instrumental in teaching Sikhi to her children and facilitating their awareness of Sikh principles and values. To me, it is the combination of stories of famous and regular women in our homes and families that guide our sense of Sikhism and feminism. Next slide, please. Over 500 years ago, our gurus were revolutionary in the pronouncements they made regarding women. At a time when other religions prevented women from leading prayers, encouraged them to die on their husbands' funeral pyres, and permitted the use of violence against women, the gurus celebrated women in a number of ways. This is the most famous quote from the Sri Guru Granth Sahib, which identifies the biological uniqueness of women and acknowledges that the world would not exist without women. Next slide, please. There are a number of references to women in the Guru Granth Sahib, but overall, the Gurus highlighted that women and men can both unite with God through prayer and seva. The first quote highlights spiritual equality. The second quote highlights that both men and women and children can remain obsessed with illusions, but it insinuates that life is so much more than that. Our lives are about praying and achieving the spiritual equality that our gurus have provided for us. The third quote references that both men and women can equally waste away if they do not accept the truth of what this life is about and our purpose here and connect with the Almighty. At the basis of Sikhi is the notion that this world is an illusion and our only purpose in this world is to pray and attain God's light, achieve unity with the Almighty. The fact that our gurus gave both men and women equal access to the spiritual path is unique among other organized religions. Next slide, please. As mentioned before, women and men have biological differences. Our holy book actually references the suffering women bear month after month during menstruation. At that time in history, Hindu women were considered impure during their periods. They were not allowed into the kitchen, to pray, enter temples, or participate in social rites. For the gurus to denounce the commonly held notions of physical purity and to focus on purity of the mind and soul is indeed remarkable. An academic, Nikki Guninder Corsi, has explored feminine symbols in the Guru Granth Sahib, and she has emphasized the importance given to women by the gurus. For example, she notes that the gurus called their poetry Guru Gurbani, which is a feminine term. She also notes that the divine light is often referred to in the Guru Granth Sahib as Jyoti. Guru Ram Das Ji said, Bani Guru hai Bani, which Bani Guru Sare. Again, it's saying that Bani is the Guru. The Guru is Bani, and Bani contains all of the elixirs. Next slide, please. In addition to the numerous references to women in the Guru Granth Sahib, the concept of Medi and Pedi in Sikhism also facilitates gender equality. Our sixth Guru, Hargobind Sahib Ji, introduced the two swords of Medi and Pedi. Medi is derived from the Persian word Medi, which means commander, governor, lord, prince, and signifies temporal power, civil authority, or material control. Pedi is derived from the Persian Pedi, literally meaning senior man, saint, holy man, spiritual guide, head of a religious order, and stands for spiritual authority, or non-material or non-worldly power, control over the soul of a person pertaining to the non-material world. The two curved swords in the khanda represent these two important aspects of our faith. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. This connection between the spiritual and political world on earth implores us to fight for justice and equality, be it gender, race, class, caste, or religion. In this picture, in the last picture, we saw that Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji found a way to free 40 Hindus from the Mughals. Along with this concept, he also created 5 takhats, seats of power for the Sikhs. He mandated that we have religious responsibilities to pray and do seva, but also to exert political influence when required to achieve justice and protect people's human rights. One of them, the Akal Takhat, meaning throne of the timeless one, is located in our Harmandir Sahib complex in Amritsar, Punjab, built by Sri Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji. It's a place of justice and consideration of the temporal issues I spoke of before. It is the highest seat of authority for the Khalsa, and place of the Jathedar, the highest spokesperson of the Sikhs. Often people say that religion and politics should not be combined, they should be kept separate. But our Gurus intended for us to be involved in both. In Amritsar, the Shiromani Gurdwara Prabandhak Committee, SGPC often called, managed historic Sikh shrines and some educational institutions. The first woman, Bibi Jagir Kaur, was elected president in March 1999. It sounds amazing. A woman was elected president of this famous and amazing symbol of our political authority. But instead of being an advocate for gender equality, she resigned later amid allegations that she was involved in the murder of her daughter, 19-year-old daughter. She was sentenced to a 5-year jail term and was later acquitted in 2018. A 21-year-old party worker, Kamaljeet Singh, claimed to be her daughter's husband and said that she opposed the marriage because he belonged to a lower caste. She died and had been forcibly, and her baby had been forcibly aborted in her. There was no post-mortem, and she was hurriedly cremated, erasing the possibility of further inquiry. Gender equality is not achieved by women simply taking the place of men as leaders in existing institutions. Even though she was a woman, Bibi Jagir Kaur was involved in violence against her daughter and unborn grandchild. She was the subject of countless allegations of corruption and not only perpetuated gender inequality, but also caste inequality. As mentioned before, there are different types of inequality and they intersect. A just society requires addressing all types of inequality. Unless women in positions of power do not dismantle patriarchal institutions and thinking, we cannot achieve a society where women's and humans' rights are respected. Most notably, women can also be responsible for violence against other women. Next slide, please. Thank you. We face a number of challenges. Male-female sex ratio in Punjab. Some of these have been talked about often. In Punjab, for every 1,000 boys, there are only 895 girls. There's been a history of women aborting female fetuses in the hopes of having a son. In Brampton, in Canada, they don't do ultrasounds anymore and reveal gender because they found an increase in abortions by South Asians. Preferential treatment for boys and men. We're primarily a Punjabi society here, and I don't know how much I need to speak about what this preferential treatment looks like, but we see examples. Often land is primarily passed on to males. We have continuation of dowry, whether it's here or in India, lavish weddings where parents of the daughter are forced to spend obscene amounts of money. Alcohol consumption. Scholars have researched alcohol and drug use in Punjab, and it's come abroad. They report alcohol abuse has always been very high among Sikhs, with the per capita rate among Sikhs of Punjab among the highest in the world. The Punjabi word for alcohol is daru, which means medicine. So when a community identifies alcohol as medicine, you have a problem on your hands. It's a maladaptive way of coping with society's stress, but it's also seen as an important aspect of Punjabi masculinity. Physical and sexual abuse. Even though most Sikhs are religious, they can still end up having a normal range of social difficulties. Statistics on intimate partner violence are notoriously difficult to authenticate, but these problems exist in our society as well. In Canada, women do have many more social supports than ever before, but more can always be done. Immigrant Sikh women had a very difficult time when they first came to Canada, not being able to speak the language, not being able to access traditional institutions that are meant for women, such as even calling the cops. But nowadays, things have changed substantially. And a psychologist said immigrant Sikh women are coming to realize that when you call 911 in Canada, you'll be gone. Sikh women in Canada have no fear of the cops, not like they do in India. Child sexual abuse is also a universal problem with grave, lifelong outcomes. The estimates vary widely depending on the country under study, the definitions used, the type of sexual abuse studied, the extent of coverage and quality of data. But India has the world's largest number of cases. It is estimated by the government that 40% of India's children are susceptible to threats like being homeless, trafficking, drug abuse, forced labor, and crime. This is a statistic about India, but it is also something that affects Punjab as well, which is why I chose the statistic to bring up. There are also various adverse effects on the psychological, physical, behavioral, and interpersonal well-being of not only the victim, but the victim's family. Hence, we need to continue speaking about these issues and supporting women and girls in our communities who have been affected. Seva Harmandir Sahib. This is another topic that is talked about often. Women have been prevented from doing kirtan. Anji, this is my son. 1 minute, please. Women have been prevented from being the Panj. This has been an issue that has been noted in Punjab at various ceremonies, but has also been noted by women anecdotally in certain situations abroad, like Nagar Kirtans that have taken place. Most often, even growing up, I cannot recall ever seeing a female being amongst the Panj gathering. I'm not sure if there's anything in our religion that actually prevents this, but for some reason, it is one of those barriers that women have not been able to surpass. I've also heard that women have been prevented from doing Chor Seva Gurdwaras in India, and women have also been prevented from participation in early morning prakash of the Guru Granth Sahib at Harmandir Sahib. It is amazing to me, and growing up in Canada, a lot of these things seem like foreign concepts. Because growing up, we attended Guru Sikh Sabha Canada, Scarborough Gurudwara in Toronto, and women were integral in every aspect of the Gurdwara. Even here, it's beautiful that we have young girls who are being encouraged and taught how to do Jor Seva and participate in all aspects of the Gurdwara. Sikhs have challenged these notions abroad, but they are not changing at our key political and religious institutions in India, and that is something very wrong that we need to come together to challenge and address. Next, I'd like to just address gang culture and Punjabi music. We cannot separate Sikhism and our Punjabi culture. They often intersect, as I mentioned before. There are many young Punjabis who glorify intimidation and violence through their music. There are highly popular Canadian-made Sikh videos that have semi-automatic weapons, Sikhs featuring revolvers, songs which are, songs which are embracing violence against women, degrading women, humiliating women, and this is in 2020. Our Gurus taught us so many hundreds of years ago that we need to respect women, and yet it seems that we continue to go backwards in society. Western Sikhs who don't want their community to be stereotyped need to discourage the small members of individuals who seem to be going around like gangsters and creating these negative images of not only our faith, but what our faith says about gender equality. 500 years ago, our Gurus gave us beautiful scriptures and empowered us to fight against injustice. They encouraged us to fully participate in society and fight against social ills. Women are not to be treated as objects and not to be abused. They are to be revered. Here I'd like to talk about some of the positive things that we see in our society and some of the initiatives that we can continue to support and strengthen. Seva and community engagement. When I first moved to Ottawa, I was so excited to see that the president of the Ottawa Gurdwara was a female. Not only was she a female, she was strong, articulate, intelligent, and showed tremendous leadership qualities. These are the types of women that we need to be our leaders. And we need to continue being involved in nonprofit organizations. We need to continue doing seva not only within the Gurdwara, but outside of the Gurdwara as well. Political participation. Canada is known for its participation of Sikhs in government, especially at the federal level. But it's also quite remarkable that we have so many female politicians. British Jagger was the youngest female Sikh woman to become Speaker of the House. It's quite an accomplishment and not something that we should look at lightly. Next election, we should try and encourage as many females as we can to participate in the political protest as required, vote, and we should support our sisters as required. Immigration and education. We have had, in the last 50, 60 years in Canada, a number of women who have immigrated to Canada, and their experiences have changed throughout. Today, what we see are hundreds of female students coming from India, coming here to study. Their parents have sacrificed so that they can spend money on their daughters to come here and live a better life. They are independent, they work hard, they study hard, and it is amazing to be able to see how we can support them so that they can become affluent members of our society. Social media. Social media is a powerful tool today. We can use it often, as it has been, to show where women are abused and when things are going wrong, but it can also be used powerfully to show how women are being successful, to share women's voices, to share women's successes. Next, I'd like to ask you, how do you think we can move forward? Before we move on to this question, I'd just like to show you the last slide. Next slide, please. These are Sikh women in Canada. These images are from the CORE project in BC. Two women decided that they wanted to highlight women's voices and their experiences. So they spoke to a number of women, took their pictures, produced their profiles, and wrote their stories on their website. It's a beautiful initiative highlighting the fact that every woman's story matters, and all of us together are responsible for promoting gender equality. I'd like to conclude with a poem by Helen Reddy. I am woman, hear me roar, in numbers too big to ignore. And I know too much to go back and pretend, because I've heard it all before. And I've been down there on the floor. No one's ever going to keep me down again. Oh yes, I am wise, but it's the wisdom born of pain. Yes, I've paid the price, but look how much I've gained. If I have to, I can do anything. I am strong, I am invincible, I am woman. You can bend, but never break me. Because it only serves to make me more determined to achieve my final goal, and I come back even stronger. Not a novice any longer, because you've deepened the conviction in my soul. I am woman, hear me roar. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.